Hello and welcome to our Emotionally Healthy Schools podcast series, where we are showcasing and celebrating good practice in some of our Derby City schools. Today I'm joined by Jane, who is the designated senior lead for mental health at Landau Forte College. Hello, Jane.
Hi.
So tell us about Landau Forte College.
Well, we're a city centre school. We are, I suppose, comprehensive in the true sense, in the sense that we draw from a mean curve on when we do the testing for students coming in. So we literally have plotted the children on a mean curve. So we get a lot of children who I guess fall on the CD borderline, but and they, contrary to some of the myths about Landau, because we're oversubscribed school, we don't just take the kids who perform best in our NFVR testing. And we're very, very comprehensive in that regard. Latterly, we have had a lot of numbers of looked after children who've come to us, and children who have got sort of high level of SEN need. We have a lot of children with EHCPs who've nominated to come to our school. Partly as well because of our city centre location, it means that children from all over the city can access us more easily. We also have 50% of our cohort is drawn from the most deprived areas of the city, and then 50% is, as the crow flies, sort of within a radius of 4.75 miles to be precise from our location. So we're a very diverse and mixed school based in the city centre, and I guess with that comes some issues to do with the fact that we have children coming from literally every locality. So we work across locality 1 and 5, 2 and 3 and 4, which means that we've created a really strong but large network with professional and agencies right across the city and beyond, which is great, but has its own I suppose barriers at points, but generally that makes for a very means that we can draw a lot of support from a lot of different areas across the city.
So when it came to working in developing your mental health within school, what was the issue that you identified that you needed to work on or focus on?
I guess probably similar to a lot of schools, we've been very aware of what's felt like the increase of issues with pupils' mental health, with students' mental health, rise in self-harm, rise in sort of poorer well-being, emotional well-being, not helped of course with the pandemic, which wasn't even on the cards, was it, when we started the award? So our focus has always been about trying to ensure that the students have a really quick access to support when they need it from that point, particularly bearing in mind the fact that a lot of the services have been decommissioned. For example, level 2 services at CAMS have been decommissioned. And we're just very conscious of the fact that at the point when we started the award, that there was a lot of strain on services, on child protection, safeguarding, and then more holistically sort of mental health services across the city. And so what we had a counsellor at the time, and we proposed that she became full-time. At the time she was working 50% in the maths department and 50% as a counsellor, and we made a proposition to the governors and to the exec team that we wanted to show that that a strong argument for having her working full-time to provide that support, which we did. And then on top of that, I suppose the end point now is that we've recruited 4 additional volunteer counsellors who come in a day a week. So, I mean, I'm not going to pretend I'm not aware of how very, very fortunate we are to have a full-time counsellor on site every day, and then 4 days of additional counselling for our students. I sometimes think, are we doing something wrong that the need is there? But I'm confident we're not. I'm confident that we just are aware of the support. I mean, this morning, for example, I've had 2 phone calls to tell me students wanting to see me. Both cases, they were wanting to share concerns about peers. So one was that a child they've been seen to have a lot of self-harming scars on her. The other was a lad who came forward to say, I was playing on computer last night with my mate, and he was expressing that he wanted, he was really unhappy, wanted to kill himself. So, those are examples of the fact that we get peer referrals in, we get students who come to seek our support. We pick things up a lot of the time as well when kids are coming through the door in the mornings when they're being greeted by staff, and it's then about making sure that once we've identified that there's a need, that then we can look at getting some support in place, and the right sort of support in place as swiftly as possible, with the consent obviously of the student and parents as well. We have a very robust sort of student support team here. We have heads of year and also deputy heads of year, and they've been trained as mental health first aiders, and even before that qualification we completed a lot of work and training with them about what is mental health, emotional well-being, looking at the data that we had on children who maybe were self-harming, children who might be what we would be classed as suicidal, and or needing sort of safety plans. And some of the children obviously come and need specialist support straight away, but a lot of what we're doing is that they need to talk, and they need to be listened to, and they want to be seen and heard. We do, so some of that is referrals. It could be from any member of staff. It could be, sometimes the restaurant staff will say, Jane, I'm really concerned, I've seen this kid, she looks pretty unhappy, or she's by herself, or this has happened, or they might overhear something, the cleaners might overhear something. It could be from any member of staff within the school who passes on concerns, or parents, personal tutors. And then it might be that, well, often if they've already got an existing relationship with the head of year, which most of the children have, they might intervene. We often complete our CADs with students and our adolescent wellbeing scale if required, and that's a really helpful sort of baseline assessment as well. So sometimes children might just be having a bad day. On that day they might be upset, something's happened. It might be something which is very small and can be dealt with. An example of that, they've fallen out with a friend. We've had a child where he's like, just want to die, and it was what we would consider a very easy to sort out issue with a friend. It's dealt with that day, and by the end of the day, there's not anything then sort of long term. Parents are aware. But then there's other cases where we identify that there is, quite a serious need for some support, and we're also very conscious of the fact that often the waiting lists for specialist services like CAMS are very long, and we have got what we were, very experienced, qualified staff on site who can pick that work up immediately and provide the level of support that we need. Including things like safety plans for children, working with the parents to ensure, for example, that they know how to support their son or daughter, including when things are getting to crisis. That's really, really important, empowering the parents, because what we know is in my experience, it's usually, things like attempts are made at home, for example, when we're talking really serious crisis points, not in school. But what schools are we're really good at picking up, because we develop these long-term relationships with children. We see them every day. Often they tell us things that they might not want to tell the parents, usually because it might be they say they don't want to upset their parents, or they don't, they feel they can't say that. And by being able to disclose to staff here, staff that they trust, it's really helpful then to move that on safely, and ensure that they get the support that they need. But to have that on in-house, and go back to your question about is it used? Oh my word, yes, it's always full to capacity. We really try hard not to have waiting lists. What's happened as a consequence of the restrictions in place at the moment is that we aren't running peer mentoring. for a lot of different reasons. And so because of that, we are, again, actually just last week I was in conversation with getting somebody to come in to do some mentoring, mentoring with our students, just to top up the support that we've got in place at the moment, alongside the mentoring that we might have with the heads of year, deputy heads of year, and other key staff. For example, we've got Senko, deputy Senko, and the year group LSAs, so learning support assistants, who also sort of provide that one-to-one interventions. It's always at capacity, and actually then on top of that, we always make sure that the council's got some time to pick up, in a day, that there's always something that might need what we've got sort of that sort of duty or urgent referral, like the ones that I've said about this morning, just to build some time in her day so that she can see students when required on an ad hoc basis, along with obviously everybody else. So I've talked about the heads of year, but also we've got quite a large safeguarding team. I'm a safeguarding lead, and there's 5 deputies as well. So we're well resourced here. There is a need, and I'm not going to pretend that that there isn't, because that would be foolish and untrue. So that is why we resource so heavily the sort of support for students. And I think it's also because we're very aware of, in terms of outcomes for students, it's not just about what the grades are. We want our children to be happy and and safe, and in terms of providing that sort of full package, we want to do as much as we can for the students here and for the parents as well.
And you mentioned about working with other agencies in the city, and you've mentioned CAMS a couple of times. So how do you work with those other agencies to enhance what you have?
Okay, so obviously the CAMS Rise service for serious self-harm and suicidal thought, and we work very closely with them, and we'll signpost, get in contact with them when we need. And then I suppose a lot of it's just continued virtually, but it's still picking up phone, emails, having virtual meetings, and ensure that the support is in place, and sometimes advocating quite strongly for students. So to make sure that that the support is prioritised if we feel that there's an escalating need there. We, like everyone else, we refer students as needs be, but bearing in mind that we offer such a lot in-house, maybe we make less referrals to those services in other schools, because we are able to provide that. But then, there's other services. Some students don't want to be seen in school for different reasons, or it might be their age that they prefer to, access PTS or some of these services outside, Bullseye Minds, for example, or bereavement services, where they want just to have that intervention away from the school setting. So obviously that's available as well. So it's sort of the best fit. Often students though find, because it's in-house, obviously they don't have to travel. We just have a lot of, for a long time we've had really, really good links with CAMS and other services, external services. Some of the more specialist ones like clinical psychology as well, or the KEEP and other services like that, which were available for students with more complex needs. We get a lot of feedback, from staff. They are very grateful because they staff here have, a lot of them are personal tutors, or form tutors, that we call them personal tutors. They're very appreciative of the fact that we run a really secure service here, and a service that really does intervene, or is available to intervene quickly. And I know they're pleased if they, we have emails. I've had emails where people have just said, "Oh, Jane, so thank you so much," because of course they're invested in their young people, their students, and they want to know that support's in place. Same with parents. We often get thanks from them. So that sort of anecdotal, the service is being is beneficial and is well received and valued. With the students themselves, so we it's sometimes difficult. It's been difficult in the past without knowing, you know, how is this intervention making a difference. So we use something called CAUS, which is the Children's Outcome Rating Scale. So we also use RCAD. So at the beginning we will get the baseline assessment to see whether or not, for example, counselling, I mean, it's a screening tool to see whether or not counselling is the right option versus other forms of intervention. We then, the counsellors, including the volunteers who come in, all will use this rating scale to ensure that the sessions are moving in the right direction. I know as well that it's important to have to work towards an end goal and to close. We don't have a counselling service which is just there for years for students. We need to see movement and progress, and so that's a useful way of ensuring that we are looking at what those outcomes are. Some of them are soft outcomes, some of them are about, we report back on what the attendance was before and after, or the progress, or things like, are the students spending a lot of time with the nurse rather than in session? Is that actually masking some other need, and can we show that the intervention then has had positive outcomes in terms of those things? It might be that it shows that, like today I spoke to somebody and she's saying, things are so much calmer at home, I'm having less arguments with mum, and things like that as well, which are important sort of indicators. But generally, yes, so it's a combination of lots of different things, but certainly the CAUS has been really valuable, along with the RCADs, in terms of looking at progress and ensuring that the service is providing what it needs to be. We also have sort of quality assurance questionnaires at the end of the sessions as well, so that our counsellor knows that what she's doing is meeting need. I think from a staff's perspective, the changes have been some things that we've changed as part of the award is maybe focusing, because we've always been really good at focusing on students, and obviously that is our priority, but we've done a lot more work to make it more explicit, the support for staff as well, and staff's well-being, and we've been very conscious of that for a long time. But actually things like the staff wellbeing charter, by going forward with this award, it's given us an opportunity to say, look, people, as a whole school community, we're wanting to make sure that we are supporting everybody here, and it's given sort of us permission to be able to do some of that, that work for staff as well, and to get feedback from staff about where they feel that they need, what their pinch points were, for example, and just to improve the support altogether. And by doing a lot of that awareness raising with students, that has been the focus for so many years, it's a natural progression to say to staff, well, how are things for you? What are you doing? And making sure that all of us are taking our well-being seriously, and are seeking support when that's required. And we have looked to improve the support that's discrete support that's on that's available free to staff when they need that as well, and making sure that that conversations about an individual's well-being is implicit and part of the conversations that line managers are having with them. So that sort of work and moving forward for that has been great, and that has been part of skilling up staff themselves to be able to recognise it in students, i.e. in others, in turn to be able to recognise it in themselves, and not to ignore their mental health or well-being as well, particularly considering the pandemic.
Oh, well, thank you so much for speaking to me, Jane, and thank you for listening.